Wait.
Social media firms will face fines and enforcement action if they do not put in place new legal safeguards in the next few months. That is what the chief executive of the regulator Ofcom has told our colleagues on 5 Live as it moves to enforce the Online Safety Act, which is meant to ensure that these companies make their services and I suppose the internet safer for children. It became law just over a year ago, but much of it isn't being enforced yet. But what do bereaved parents think? Like our next guest, Ellen Room, who is part of the Bereaved Parents Online Safety Group after her 14-year-old son Jules died in April 2022 after being online and in what's described as unclear circumstances. In a moment, I'll also be talking to Mark Bunting, one of Ofcom's online safety directors. But first, let me welcome you, Ellen. Good morning.
Good morning.
How do you feel at the moment in terms of the social media companies and their responsibilities to young people? Do you feel anything or enough has changed?
From my point of view, I don't think anything has changed. They're all waiting to see what Ofcom are going to do to enforce it. And Ofcom don't seem to be quick enough to enforce those, new powers to stop social media harming children. And from us as a group of parents, we're sitting there thinking, well, when are they going to start enforcing this? They don't seem to be doing enough, in my opinion.
And just to talk about your boy, your son Jules, for a moment, as you have put it yourself, he was a happy boy. He had even just there's evidence of him just being smiling and being happy just before this awful tragic incident happened to your family.
Yeah, he spent the whole day with friends. He was playing. They were playing football. That you can quite clearly see him on our security camera saying goodbye to his friends, and he's laughing and saying, "See you later. See you tomorrow, Monty." And he's laughing. And then I don't know what happened. And I have always said I don't know. It was social media, but there was nothing offline. So he wasn't bullied. He was a popular child. There's nothing to make me understand why on earth he would end his life. And my whole thing around this has been, well, what happened online? Was he being bullied? Was he, being blackmailed by somebody? And I don't know. And that, and we've proven with a whole load of other children, is that does happen. We know that this is happening. And so what happened to my son is my whole argument around it. And I do think that social media has an absolute obligation to protect our children, and I don't feel they're doing enough.
Well, also just to remind all of our listeners, the Online Safety Act, platforms will have to show they're committed to removing illegal content, promoting or facilitating suicide or self-harm, allowing content around controlling or coercive behaviour and child sexual abuse, extreme violence. We could go on, but just to remind people what this is meant to be, making a change around. And why don't you have that confidence in Ofcom?
Because that is all still out there. You can quite easily see things that our children shouldn't be seeing. I don't want to see it as an adult. I don't want children seeing it. And it doesn't seem that Ofcom are actually enforcing that. This bill has come out to protect children. Well, start enforcing it, start making a difference, and start, slapping the social media companies on the wrist so that they actually change things, because we need a change. It needs to be now, not waiting years down the line for the next, part. They need to be doing something.
Mark Bunting, one of Ofcom's online safety directors. What do you say to that? Good morning.
Good morning. Well, it's always really sobering to hear testimony from parents like Ellen who have had to experience terrible tragedies in the last few years. We completely understand the pressure to move quickly here to drive change with social media companies. Since the Act came in a little over a year ago, we've published 3 major sets of proposals. This is the most comprehensive set of codes and guidance that any regulator anywhere in the world has provided for social media. It is normal. It's perfectly appropriate for us to consult carefully on those rules before we bring them into force. The law requires us to do that, including talking to children and families about their experiences. We're partway through that process, but we're going to be announcing today that work is on track. And from spring next year, we're going to be expecting major changes from the companies.
How?
So the first thing they have to do is assess the risks to their users. Actually, at the end of this year, we'll be publishing our final guidance for companies about how they assess risks of illegal content on their platforms. They then have 3 months to do those assessments. We'll expect the companies to provide those assessments to us on request, and we'll be making sure that they're suitable for the task that the companies face and sufficient to address the risks that they've identified. And from the spring, any service that's likely to be accessed by children has to do the same to identify risks to children.
Otherwise,
we're also publishing code.
So just, I mean, sorry to cut across, but otherwise, what will happen? What is the actual risk here? You're dealing with global companies. We're the UK. You're the regulator here. What have they got to be fearful of to make sure that they do comply with every part of this?
We're expecting that companies will make the changes they need to make to come into compliance voluntarily. We've worked very closely with industry to make sure they understand the rules and are ready to take prompt action. But we have very significant enforcement powers too, including, if we need them, powers to fine companies up to 10% of their global revenue, and in extremis to get court orders to block the availability of the service in the UK. Those aren't the outcomes we want. We want the services to be safe.
But are you prepared to do that? And is the government with you on that?
Absolutely, yes.
So why do you think? I'll go back to Ellen if I can, just briefly. But why do you think somebody like in the position that Ellen is in feels so let down by you, by the regulator?
We understand that there hasn't been enough change from industry. This has been going on a long time. We're very sympathetic to the concerns that parents like Ellen and many others have shared with us. We completely understand that frustration. Nobody is more keen to bring these powers into force than us. The law does require that
arguably these parents are. I know what you're saying about the law requires that you go through these particular processes. Ellen, what's your view on this?
Well, I'm party to a group of parents, to the Bereaved Families for Online Safety. And as a group, we absolutely, every single one of us, think Ofcom is not doing enough. There needs to actually be some controls. And we seem to be just waiting for social media to suddenly make changes. Really, there's an online safety bill. Suddenly, somebody needs to enforce it and actually start doing something about it, because these big companies are still affecting our children. And we've got children being affected by things they're seeing online that we need to stop. And that, it cannot be done quick enough. And we're saying, well, actually, wait till spring and things might change. Well, it just really bothers me as a parent that we've got children seeing things as
there's a chasm. It seems there's a chasm between the both of you. You've both been able to say what you can on this so far. Ellen Room, Mark Bunting, thank you.
It is 2 minutes to 8 and time for the weather with Sarah Keith.